Yo, what's good everyone? In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up an automated storage system in Starfield where you can land at your outposts, quickly drop all your resources from your inventory and your ship's cargo into a single container to get auto-sorted, then hot drop any additional gear, aid, or miscellaneous items to be sold later so you can get back out there and continue your adventures. All the resources stored through this system will be made automatically available for any building, crafting, or research you do at that facility. This setup evolved from my personal struggle with being over-encumbered literally all the time, and I finally arrived at a solution that lets me continue playing the parts of the game I enjoy without having to constantly put those activities on pause to sort and sell my loot. The final piece of this is to set up outposts with the resources you need to build all the different types of containers, so you'll essentially be able to build an unlimited amount of storage. I currently have about 45,000 kilograms of available mass storage between my current outposts and homes, with the resources on hand to make hundreds more of storage containers when needed. All this is possible right away without any extra skills required into outpost building or anything like that, so let's get started. Side note, I do highly recommend the weightlifting talent early, as it almost doubles your carrying capacity and also gives you a really useful combat bonus to reduce stagger from melee attacks made against you. Alright, so first thing we are going to take a look at is the setup of the actual automated storage loop. So basically what's happening here is everything is going into this transfer container, and this is basically what lets you pull stuff directly from your ship's cargo into here, and you can also drop stuff from your inventory into here. And if we check out how the links are set up, basically you can see my transfer container is outputting, so you would right click this and then end it on one of these, is outputting to each of the 4 different types of storage containers. So you have solid, gas, liquid, and manufactured components. Basically what these containers are right here are the beginning and ends of my storage loop. So these huge container farms you see over here, basically imagine this being one giant line of containers, and this top container is the first one in the line, and this bottom container is the last one in the line. So we essentially have input on top, output on bottom. And so basically if you run up to these, what this tells you is the bottom level is going to show you the very first container. So if this shows 100%, that means this storage is working. And if it shows a 0%, that means there's nothing in that loop, because anything in there would come to this final container. And this top container will always show 0% unless your loop is full. So basically top containers show if it's full or not, bottom containers show if it's working or if anything's in there. So let's take a look at solid first, because this is going to be the vast majority of stuff you're storing, especially early, are going to be not just the inorganic solid materials, all the different ores and stuff, but also all the different like plant and animal parts you get from scavenged resources. So basically we're going from transfer container to the first container in our loop, and then you can see this connects to the very beginning of our loop. So it connects to this very first container up here, and then I basically just have this going in like a snake pattern. So it goes from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, and the order of this matters. So make sure, like if you link this one from here to here instead of from here to here, it's not going to work. So make sure you're going in the proper order. So you're linking this guy to this guy, this guy to this guy, so on, all the way down the line. And then I just dropped one down and like snake back and forth to keep it easy in my brain. You basically like imagine it's like flowing between the containers, like connected by pipes or whatever. So everything from the transfer container comes into this one, and then it flows like this, and then it goes down a level, flows like this, down a level, flows like this. So all these are connected in this way, and it's basically just simulating a giant line, right? You're just making a giant line of containers. So this ends at this final container at the very bottom, and this connects back to the end of our loop I was just talking about over here, which is this bottom container. So to just keep it simple in my head, I put the input on top and the output on bottom, and that's mirrored over in my stacks over here, right? So transfer container to top container to the top of your stack, and then a huge line all the way down to the final one, and that just connects back to your final one here. And you can basically imagine these being, you know, at the very beginning and the very end of these giant stacks, and you can basically build these, you know, in any formation you want, giant walls, giant lines, like however you want to organize it. But it seems like you can stack them really high, and so I'm not sure, I actually haven't tested if there's a limit to how high you can go, but you can get, you know, like pretty dense storage even with just the rank 1 containers without any additional points or anything into the outpost shit. So I have that same thing mirrored with gas. You can see here my whole gas stack, and same thing transfer container is outputting to top gas container, going over to the top of the gas stack, snaking its way down all the way to the final one, coming all the way back here, and then same exact thing with liquid, right? Going through the top liquid one, coming to this first liquid container, snaking its way all the way down to this final liquid container, which connects back to here. And then this last one is the hardest one to build because you need titanium. And so titanium is actually the only resource I don't have an outpost set up for yet. That's like the next one I'm trying to find and work on. But basically this one is for manufactured components. So you'll find that manufactured components are often some of the heaviest. Like there's ones that weigh like 11 pounds for like a single unit. And so these actually have like a lot of weight. And so getting an outpost with titanium is really going to open up. This one you can see for my warehouse loop, I only have 5 so far because I haven't got that much titanium yet. I've mostly gotten it from blowing up enemy ships. But basically, you know, once I find a titanium outpost, this is just going to be, you can easily make a huge wall stack, just like I had with these other ones. It's going to go up all here. And I have it set up kind of aesthetically where if you look at like my full outpost layout, like this is the middle, and then I have all my like hab and crafting and shit, like my living quarters and stuff right here in the kind of like middle on this plateau. And then, you know, my ship and a couple extra just cool things going on up here. And then I have my 3 cargo links. But the cargo links are independent from all this. So, you know, eventually you could link your cargo links into these, but basically for this, I think you want to have a separate setup for you just like specifically dropping loot, because if you start shipping in like resources like 600 at a time, like 600 copper or whatever, you know, that's going to take up like 3 or 4 of these containers right away. And so what I think you want to do is if you're shipping in resources, you want to build a separate loop. So I'm starting to build a separate loop over here that's going to basically receive all my input from my transfer stations. And most of that's going to be solids. This is just going to be a massive solid stack over here. But basically we have outposts set up for all the different resources to make the containers. And if we look at what's required, so you'll need iron, tungsten, and some lubricant to make this transfer container, but you only need 1. And then solid's going to require aluminum and iron and these adaptive frames. Well, you can make the adaptive frames at your workbench. And it's 1 aluminum and 1 iron. So it's just all aluminum and iron for the solids. It's going to be aluminum and nickel for the liquids. And then it's going to be copper and tungsten for the gas. And the adaptive frames, again, are all just iron and aluminum. So it's going to be basically those, aluminum, iron, nickel, tungsten. So just 5 resources, really. And then this final one, it's going to be all the same stuff, except you're going to need to find titanium somewhere. And so that's the only resource that I don't have an outpost for. But because of that, I can basically make unlimited amount of these containers. And at my outpost, which I'll show you in a minute, I have a bunch more storage containers set up to basically hold bulk amounts of those resources so that if I ever need to build more containers anywhere, I can just build a shitload all at once, and all the resources are already extracted sitting there waiting for me. And I think it's a good idea to try to set up this little location where you're dropping everything pretty close to where you zone into your outpost, wherever you have your little middle guy. But you can just zone in, like I showed at the beginning, run over here, drop everything that counts in one of these categories, which is basically literally everything in resources. There's a few items that don't count, but almost everything in resources will get funneled into one of these container loops. And then again, you have the quick gauge readouts where these basically just tell me they're working. And then these top ones will tell me if they're full. So if these are all 0%, we're good. If these are like 100%, we're good. Okay, so let's show a quick example of the whole system working if we come in with a big load. And so I just pulled everything out of all of these containers. So the whole system is completely empty. You can see all the banks are at 0, as well as the bottom of my gas and fluid and warehouses as well. And then we'll pull the last little bit out of the very final container in the loop, which is on the bottom like we talked about. So this will be when we put stuff in, this will be the very first one to receive stuff because it's at the end of the chain, right? And so our loops are completely empty. We are at almost 3,000 mass, so let's put as much of it in our ship as we can. Something else, if you didn't know, you can just instantly access your ship's cargo hold from anywhere in your outpost if you just hit your ship button, and then you hit your cargo hold button from there. So it's weird. If you go to your inventory, it doesn't have the normal option to go to your cargo hold here. But if you actually access your hold through your ship menu, so it's H. H is the hotkey on PC, and then whatever it is with controller. You can access your ship's cargo from anywhere on your base, and this also works like if you go up to any container, you can access it in the same way where, you know, basically any chest or any container you have on site, you can get, you know, you can dump or take stuff from your ship's hold just by accessing, you know, container, it's automatic, but accessing the ship menu this way. And when you access your ship's cargo hold in this way, you also have access to the transfer container. So anything that's still in the transfer container that hasn't gotten moved will also just be chilling here, but everything's going to basically be auto sorted out of the transfer container unless it is not a resource that belongs in one of those 4 categories. Then it'll stay in here and you'll have to pull it out manually, but you basically get to this menu from anywhere on base and from any container on base. I just want to make sure everyone was aware of that. By the way, while we're at it, another quick tip on moving while encumbered is if you get to 0, first of all, when you're in the air, the little thing can't stop your auto running, and you'll never die from this. So you can actually, when I'm doing a bunch of shit with a bunch of resources, you know, once you get to this low health state, you can just kind of hover here, and as long as you're not, you know, doing combat or anything like that, this is totally fine, besides the annoying red stuff happening. And then when you're trying to not lose health, you can basically, you want to move around with ADS. So you can see when I'm not ADS, I'm moving hella slow, because you basically, you want to toggle your walk on, because if you see if you don't have your walk on, you use CO2. So you want to always, when you're over encumbered, you want to always have your walk on so your oxygen recovers. And then you want to ADS when you're not doing the jump thing. So if you're wanting to stay at full health or not take health, you can, you know, basically ADS move and you wait for your oxygen to come back up, and then you jump move like this, and then, you know, you stop right before your oxygen runs out or your CO2 maxes out, and you just move with ADS like that. So I do a lot of over encumbered movement. Okay, so like we were just talking about, if we access our ship's cargo hold from right here and go to our inventory, I'm going to just store as much of the resources as I can that we just grabbed from our container farm. So we're going to max out our Econo haul. So now we're holding 939 kilograms, and our Econo haul is holding almost the full 2,660 kilograms. So we got, you know, let's say roughly like 3,000 kilograms of resources that we've flown in from a giant adventure. We got a full cargo hold. We are over encumbered ourselves, and instead of wanting to spend the next 3 hours sorting through all of our loot, we want to keep playing the game. And so we arrive at our super dope home base where we have our automated storage system set up. We run from where we zone in at our little guy. So like I said earlier, you want to try to set this up somewhere relatively close to your transfer container so you can just zone in, zip right over here. We're going to go here, and this has a capacity you can see of 200 itself. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to go to our inventory, go to resources, and see how there's this option to store all resources. We're going to do that. It's going to be at capacity because it can only store 200 at a time, right? And then if we just tab out, you see it, most of it just instantly disappears. So all that just went into the loop, and you can see it's showing up at these bottom containers at the end of the loop. Whatever just got auto sorted there. So this was all solid, or a big chunk of it solid. And then you'll notice too, like, it doesn't really matter where the stuff ends up in the farm because you're going to be able to access all of it from your crafting menu. So all your research, all your workbenches, your build menu when you're doing your outpost stuff, it has access to anything in these storage tanks. So you're not really going to need to find where stuff is at. And so we just did 200 at a time. So we're going to just basically do that same exact thing real quick over and over. So there's another 200. There's another 200. There's another 200. And I'm all, so that's all the, there we go. See, I'm at 168 mass from inventory. I just instantly dumped all of my, 700 kilograms of resources, and they are all getting stored in the loop. And you see a huge chunk of it's solid because that's just a huge chunk of what I have stored right now. And then we can do the same exact thing for your ship container. So you just go, instead of queuing over to inventory, you queue one more over to your ship's cargo hold, go to resources, and you hit the same button, the take all resource. It'll say take, but it basically, this is going to put the resources from your econo haul into this storage container, or into this transfer container. So we do the same exact thing, where we're just going to do it over and over. Everything's going to get instantly pulled out in the same exact way. We're just going to do it from our ship's cargo hold instead of from our inventory, and we can just do this over and over again. Boom to boom boom. 200 pounds at a time. And there we go. So we just dumped, 2,000 kilograms of resources into our loop. And it took, just a minute or two to just spam dump all that stuff. And if we come look, we can see that our bottom level should be full, which is true. See, we have 100% of all of our meters because this is the first one in the chain. So we can see all of the manufacturing components we dumped went here. The first batch, all the solids went to the solid loop. All the gas went to the gas loop. And all this liquid went to the liquid loop. And, if we go over, I have a ton of extra gas and liquid right now where I'm not even anywhere close to the capacity, and solid's the most I have, and I'm still, that's like basically the full one. So I still have a huge chunk of these that are unfilled. And you'll notice occasionally you get like one extra like floater. Sometimes the containers like to have like one thing in them. It's not doing it right now, but sometimes you'll see just like one random one up in the chain. Like there's ytterbium there, and there's, I guess that's just because this one's full, but anyways, that's sort of irrelevant. So you'll notice there are a few types of resources, very few actually, that don't belong to any of these categories. So like one of them is quark degenerate tissue. The like bulk food items, like the tranquility like bulk packs that count as resources instead of food, also won't get auto sorted. They don't like belong to one of these categories. So the few things that don't get auto sorted will still be left in here at the end of this. So you can transfer those back to your cargo hold if you want, or you could take them to quickly put in your hot drop spots, which we'll talk about now. And then right after I do that, I run over here, and this is basically my hot drop storage, where anything that's not a resource that gets filtered into one of these categories, like gear, mainly gear and aid. So once you do that, the main stuff you're going to be left with is like weapons, suits, packs, helmets, so like gear and apparel, and then any like excess aid. But once you drop that stuff, you're going to have most of your mass back. Like that's going to free up a huge amount of your weight if you can get rid of your resources, your gear, and any like heavier aid items. So this is basically close by to where your transfer container. You want to have like a hot drop stash where you just have a bunch of chests lined up. I have like 6 here, so like 900 pounds. But I could have this along this entire wall, and I could do another row here. But so I have like hot drop 1 right here, and this is where I quickly put anything random like that. And then if we come up to my base, dude, these blue guys kill these other guys all the time. It's sad. If I come up to my base, it's nice to have chests outside where you don't have to go through an airlock, but I basically have hot drop zone 2, where if that 900 pounds is full, or if that 900 kilograms is full, I have like another, this is 12 chests times 150, so another 1800 of shit in here, and I have like a specific chest for like extra food bullshit, and then like extra misc and like extra books. but then I just have a bunch of free. Basically, the idea is having these zones where you can quickly drop all your stuff and sort through it later. And you don't have to worry about sorting through any of the resources because it all gets auto-sorted. And then, like I was saying earlier, anything that's in your resource loop, you have automatic access to if you do any crafting or research. So you can see everything in those storage loops is going to be available to build anything at any of your stations or research, or if you actually open the like outpost build menu. Another cool little trick, if you don't know, is you can use these control consoles to access the outpost menu. These are like on the cargo links or on your ship pad or on this fabricator. You can literally just run up to it, and instead of hitting interact and accessing the fabricator menu, if you hold interact, it'll bring up this extra menu, and then you can just hit outpost and it'll take you to your outpost build menu. And then, so like you don't have to run all the way back to this every time. You can do it, at these little pads on the cargo links, or at like a fabricator, or at like your shipbuilder pad. And you can use this to, I use this to like quickly do stuff inside here. But yeah, basically we have hot drop zone 1 over there where we can just drop stuff and get on our way. And then if that's full, we have this second like bigger hot drop zone inside. And then right next door to my hot drop zone, I basically have like my gear showcase storage room where I put all my weapons and armor in here that I want to keep. Then I have a special contraband chest. And then I really like, it sucks, you can only have 6 mannequins, but it's really cool to set up like a demo room. So I basically have this, whatever you would want to call it, like showcase room. And this gives you a cool way to like put stuff on display and like take it out of like normal storage and just have it look dope, sitting around, being all badass and looking cool. And then finally, you're going to want to have like a big cold storage room. So this double-decker square hab building works perfect because you can get this really nice dense setup of chests, these military chests like with the science crates in the corner, and just really good density storage. But this is basically my cold storage room, so anything that I have extra of or that I don't need immediately to build or craft, I basically put in here. So this ends up being a lot of the manufactured components right now because I don't have a ton of those warehouses yet. But you can see, a lot of these take up a lot of space. Like monopropellant, weighs 3.5 pounds per, so just 42 of them will fill up a 150-pound chest. These fuel rods weigh like 5. I keep saying pounds, but I mean kilograms if I'm fucking that up. I am a North American system guy. But yeah, and then you can mirror this same exact setup down here, which I will do in the not too distant future. And then you have just like this really nice cold storage room. And if you see, I kind of have mine like off to the side, out of the way, where it's like aesthetically, not super ugly compared to my beautiful, clear windowed spaces. And then right over here by my ship pad, sometimes these guys, ow. Sometimes they fuck with you, sometimes they don't. This guy's feeling frisky. So over here by my ship pad, I have like kind of like a third hot drop zone, but this is specifically, I have like a ship parts chest for extra ship parts. And then I have a chest specifically for food buff stuff. So I try to keep like, a big chunk of my food buff stuff in here, and I use this to quickly drop my food buff stuff if I have extra. And then I have the same thing for drugs, and I really think the like drugs and bandage stuff should be separate from the food in the menu. It's kind of annoying that they're together. But yeah, so again, just basically the idea is creating these little zones to have specific places to put stuff, so you can literally just zone in, auto sort all your resources through the transfer container, hot drop anything you need, and get back on your way. Just fucking as soon as you're not over encumbered, you can just open your map and quick travel anywhere. You don't even have to run back to your ship. And so just a really good way to get rid of everything and avoid that part of the game where you have to sift and sort through loot, so you can get back to your adventures and you can do all your loot sorting and selling all in one big chunk. I usually do it in the morning or whatever before I start my sesh. So that's the foundation of the idea, and I've been working on trying to find something that feels good and where I can actually do what I was just talking about before I share it, and I finally feel like I've arrived. And so final thing I want to mention on this part is in order to build your chests, you are going to need aluminum, which you're already going to have from your setups to get your containers, and you're going to need structural components. And if so, we go look at the building of chests real quick, which why it's not under storage, I don't know. But yeah, it's going to take 4 structural with 2 aluminum. So you're going to have plenty of aluminum. So you're going to need a bunch of these structural components. And just totally by accident, I was just looking for a cool place to land and explore and put my first outpost as I figured stuff out. But I landed right here on Oberon 1. And so this is like if you're at Alpha Centauri, it's just down here to the right. And you'll go over through Olympus first until you discover this Sakharov one. But basically just this Oberon Prime system and this Oberon 1 planet. And if you land anywhere where there's a forest, basically, which is going to look like where I'm at in my outpost right now. This is where I am on the planet. I don't know if the maps are like identical for people. You get this huge gold patch up top. And then I didn't even like land here for the resources. This is just a cool planet and a really good place to get these structural components. So if you're looking for a place to grab those, just finding even a good, you don't even have to have an outpost here, just having a good landing spot you can instantly go to. And it's really easy to farm. You're just going to see these Laga plants. And so they're just these blue plants. They really stand out against the other foliage. And you can see I already grabbed the flower off of this one. But like if we come down to this one right here, it has its flower still, and I think these regenerate over time. But you can basically just harvest them, and that's going to give you 1 structural stock per, and so you need 4 plants per chest. But you can just go on huge runs through here where you're just sprinting, through grabbing all the Laga plants you can find, and some of these might be grabbed if I had done the path before, but you can see just instantly right by my base, there's already a path that I haven't grabbed recently. And so this just, if you land in a good spot, this just kind of goes on for a while in every direction. And so just sprinting around, grabbing these Laga plants is, I think, a really good way to get, close to as many of the structural things as you want for chests very quickly. So I hope that's helpful. So for aluminum, I actually have this little outpost. This was one of the first outposts I made as well, right on the moon next to New Atlantis. So if you're at Jemison, it's literally just this moon right next to it, Kurtz, and it just has aluminum and helium. And so I just built a base here for aluminum and for the helium to run the inter-system cargo links. But those are basically bugged right now. I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, this is like an easy place to get a lot of aluminum. I think it's really worth trying to find spots where you can get at least 2 resources in one little zone. So like in this one, you have aluminum and helium 3, and the dream is 3, right? And the only one I've found so far with 3 is actually the next version of this outpost, where I'm going to basically decommission this one as soon as I get this other one fully online. And it's up here in Cheyenne. And it's, if you can find a planet with aluminum, beryllium, and helium, I actually found a spot where I can get all 3 of those in one. And so you're gonna need beryllium for other random stuff, but it seems like usually you can find like one main resource, like aluminum or iron or copper like that, or nickel, next to like some sort of like second tier resource that you're still gonna need, but not a crap ton of. So like cobalt and lead and that kind of stuff. Tungsten's another important one you'll need for the gas ones. But this is basically, V2 of my aluminum, beryllium, helium setup. And so all my aluminum comes from here. And basically what I like to do here is basically set up this queue where my extractors will go to a similar type of storage bank. And this basically lets you just have a bank where you have these resources ready to go. So if I wanted to ship these in, I could, but I'm having, these cargo links are literally bugged right now, where what goes out of the output box is not what shows up in the base, like, at all. And so I'm really confused what's going on with these a lot of the time. But ideally, when these bugs are fixed or when this is working, you could literally ship in aluminum, beryllium, and helium to your base, to your main base, like my one on Overum, and then you'd have helium to power all of your other cargo links, and then you have basically unlimited aluminum and beryllium for what you want to do. But at every outpost like this, like once you get the resources online to make unlimited storage containers, you can essentially just have these banks built where I have 10 containers fit like perfectly along the length of one of these cargo links. And so these bottom 10, are all aluminum storage. So I have, fucking what, 1,500 aluminum just ready to go. And then same thing with beryllium up here, and then same thing with helium-3 up here. And I'm basically trying, this is like my latest sort of outpost design for a simple outpost. And what's happening is my extractors are going to, I'll show you. My extractors are going to just the first one in the chain, and it's a simple just line like we were looking at the other setup, where my helium extractors way the fuck over here are going to, you can see I barely fit all the resources in one circle. The helium's way over there, and the fucking other one's way on the edge over here. But yeah, so helium's going into this one, and then this is just linked like those banks I showed you before, where this one goes to this one goes to this one, all the way down the line, and then this one feeds into the output container of the link. And then same thing with, and you also can do something where if you build an extra little, when I have an intergalactic cargo link, I like to build an extra helium container. And basically what you can do is if you're sending wherever your helium's coming from, so at another base, like in my Oberon base, it'd be coming from my input if it was getting flown in from this base. But like at this base, because I'm making it, I want to send helium through my output, so I want my extra helium to power this base. So from my output, I go to this extra little helium bank, so any extra gas will get put here, and then this goes to my reactor. So you can see, if you look at the top left, I have 1,000 helium ready to power this, because it's considering all this helium that's banked right here linked, because basically you want this thing at the very end of your helium chain, and then it'll always get access to the first helium available. And if you have resources flying in like at Oberon, you would basically do the same thing, except you'd link from your incoming, because that's where the helium's coming in, to a gas container like this. And if the only gas you're shipping in is helium, then all your helium's going to get auto sorted to that container. And if you link from that to this little fuel bank that's required on your intergalactic cargo links, then that's going to basically give you, unlimited automatic helium setup that you don't have to worry about, refilling any containers or anything like that. Okay. All right, and then for tungsten, this planet Voss, we can see, if you do a scan, has quite a bit of tungsten. I actually found mine before I had the upgraded scan just by accident. But you can see, hopefully you can kind of see just from me toggling this, like where the tungsten's at. It's this lighter gray. And so you can find tungsten surrounded by lead a lot of time. But if you go to Voss, like this whole middle section is going to be filled with a bunch of tungsten. And I found this little spot right up here, again, kind of by accident, where tungsten and lead are right next to each other. And so you can see a big tungsten patch, and then there's a big lead patch over here. But again, same idea, where I basically have all these tanks are going in a big line for the tungsten, and all these tanks are going in a big line for the lead. And same thing, where if you build these banks, you basically have an unlimited amount of these resources that you can just store and have ready for any time. And really, once you get your aluminum and iron covered, you can build an unlimited amount of these solid banks. So aluminum and iron are probably the most important ones to do right away. Once these cargo links get fixed and actually work like they should, basically what I'm trying to do is ship the 2 resources from Voss with an inter-system cargo link that doesn't require helium. So this is like a basic one that doesn't have the helium thing, so it can only go in system. I'm trying to link that. over to my 2 outposts on Zamka, and then I'll just have a main point at my Zamka 3 outpost where all 6 of these resources get shipped to 1 landing pad at Obram. So you can basically do a consolidation thing where if you can find multiple resources within the same system, I'm shipping from Voss to Zamka 3 with a non-helium link, and then I'm shipping from Zamka 2 to Zamka 3 with a non-helium link. And so Zamka 3 has, here, we'll just go here and show you. So Zamka 3 has 2 system pads, that one and that one. So that one's flying in from Voss, and then this one's connected to Zamka 2, which I'll show you in a minute. And then this is an intergalactic one, and so this one would be powered by helium and linked to my Obram outpost. So the idea is to basically get all 6 of these resources from these 2 planets over to my main Obram outpost with 1 cargo link, and then I have 2 more links available still to fly in other resources. So if you replicated this same setup in 3 different systems, you could basically have 6 different resources at minimum, right? If you get 2 per outpost, sometimes you can get 3, but if you had 2 per outpost, you could have 6 resources coming into one pad, 6 resources coming into another pad, and 6 resources coming in to the third pad. So you could actually get 18 different types of resources flown in versus just 6 if you were just doing 2 per intergalactic pad like normal. So this is basically like my consolidation station, where that's the Voss pad, and so everything flying in from Voss is going to, so all my tungsten is going to get stored in these 2 container banks, and it's set up the same way in the line. And then from my other outpost that I'll go show you after this, where I'm getting nickel and tungsten, where I'm getting nickel and cobalt, all that gets flown into this pad, and then and these banks, and then this outpost itself is gathering iron and copper. And so this spot on Zamka, if we look at the scan, which is again, this Voss and Zamka are in Alpha Centauri, the same spot with like New Atlantis and Jemison and such, just over on this, by this Olivos planet here. And so this is the scan of Zamka, but you can see both Zamka and Voss just have a fuckload of different resources. So these 2 planets are like really good spots to try to get, multiple different resources all gathered in one facility like this one here, and then shipped over to wherever your main outpost is for building. And so this is where I landed on Voss. But basically you want to try to find, any of these resources next to each other. I found a spot with copper and iron, which is like a really good combo to have. And so I'm gathering all my copper and iron here, and you can see I build these little banks because you can just basically hold an infinite almost amount of resources for building. So just like I have that huge aluminum bank, I have this huge iron bank. So at any point when I'm playing, if I want to make like 100 new solid storage containers, I can just come here, grab all this iron, go to that other post, grab all that aluminum, make a bunch of frames at a workbench, and you can just throw a workbench down, at any place where you're building. It's really nice to you can see mine right here. Just throw a little outdoor workbench down, and this is where you can make your frames real quick. And these are cool because it'll actually just give you you get 1 XP for frame build. So if you build a stack of 99, you get 99 XP. So it's like a little extra XP farm going. And if you wanted to, you could constantly ship, once this shipping shit is working, you could constantly ship iron and aluminum into your main facility and have just a huge bank of iron aluminum storage there in one spot, and just make an unlimited amount of those adamantine frames, sell all the extra, and get all the extra XP. Just a nice little like bonus XP farm if you wanted to do that. Also just really love the aesthetic of these moons with this Olivos planet like hovering in the sky. This one can have pretty bad weather sometimes, but so let's just really quickly look at the setup here. So you can see I have basically the output of this is coming in from Voss, the base I just showed you. And so the input for my tungsten and lead are getting split up between these 2 storage banks. And then the output of those 2 storage banks are going to the transfer container to get shipped to my main facility. And again, like basically once they fix whatever these bugs are, this will work. But like right now, it's like if I'm seeing it'll show the cargo ship with 500 capacity, and it'll show, you know, all the 6 different resources in here, and it'll show them all disappear into the ship. But then if I go back to my main outpost, they just don't show up. I'll get like 100 copper instead of my 600, you know, different types of resources. And so I don't know what the deal is with that. There's really no rhyme or reason. It just straight up doesn't work for me. I don't know if anyone else has had a different experience, but literally what I ship out is not what gets shipped in. And so I'm waiting to hear or see what they do to fix that. But this setup should work just fine in the end. But basically, I have all my copper storage over here, and that's coming from the extractors. And the final link in that line is going to the output. And I have all my iron over here, and same thing. It's just a big line where all the extractors are going to one box, and then the boxes are just going in a back and forth line, and then that's going to my output, going to Oberon, my main base. And then same thing, this pad is going to my third and final outpost for this system, which is also just over on Zomka, and this one's getting nickel and cobalt. And so again, I have these 2 banks are all nickel and cobalt, and then they're getting fed, you know, so that you can see that it's coming from this input, and then they're getting fed into the outputs. The idea is I have 6 outputs coming here, 1 lead, 1 tungsten from this base, 1 nickel, 1 copper, or 1 nickel, 1 cobalt from this base, and then my iron and my copper from this base. And so essentially what this should allow us to do is ship in all 6 of those resources to 1 cargo link, once it's working, to 1 cargo link at our main base. So I hope that makes sense. All right, so the last one is the one that has the nickel and cobalt, and it's also on Zomka, just kind of over here on the other side of the planet. So here's the base we were just at, and this one's like basically over on the other side, but it's in just an area where cobalt and nickel collide. And we can see this is probably like the simplest version of the setup here, where we just have 2 resources we're gathering. We have cobalt over here, nickel over there, and then here's my broken ship that's coming in, not doing much. So he's taking these resources, but where he's taking them, we're not quite sure. Some of them are showing up at that other base, but a lot of them are disappearing into thin air. If we look at the setup here, my 2 nickel extractors are coming over to the beginning of this line. These are linked in a line, and then the output's going to the output of the link. Same thing with the cobalt, going into the beginning of this line, going down the line, and then into the output. And so ideally, this would get flown into my Zomka 2 outpost that I was just showing you, and then the 6 resources get collected and banked there, and then all the extra overflow gets automatically shipped out to my main base over it. All right, final couple of things I just want to mention real quick related to storage there's a couple things you can do to increase your storage, like whiskey, I think is, yeah, whiskey will give you carrying capacity, like a little extra carrying capacity for a little bit, but reduce your oxygen recovery. So you can use those to carry a little bit more. And then there's a way better one that's a drug. Yeah, this pick-me-up one. I think this is actually, you get it somewhere in the quest line on Mars when you're in Sidonia doing the aqueous hematite stuff. But this gives you 50 carrying capacity for 15 minutes, so pretty fucking rad, actually. And then last thing I have to recommend is this Econo-Haul ship, just because it's been so good to me. I absolutely love it. I've been using it like almost the whole time I've been playing Starfield. It was the first thing I saved my credits for was to buy this ship because it has an absolutely massive cargo hold. Yeah, you can see 2,660 kilograms of cargo available base, and then it's weird. You should be able to boost that by having Sam Coe on your crew, which he was on mine. I don't know why he's not right now. But watch, it doesn't work, and I don't know why. So the outpost links seem bugged to me, and the followers seem linked, where if I put Sam Coe on my ship, he has 2 ranks in payloads. And so if I go look at the payload skill, that should give my cargo hold 20% more capacity. And it literally just does nothing. My Econo-Haul, even I've tried like resetting my ship, having him on board, it just stays at this number. And so having him on your crew should increase it, but it doesn't. I saw somewhere like on Steam community where someone was saying you need at least rank 1 for the follower stuff to come into effect, and then someone immediately responded and said they got rank 1 of outpost engineering, and having Lynn or Heller at their outpost did nothing. And so I think it's just bugged. I don't think there's a solution to this. But the same way Sam doesn't work, like I have, you can see I have both Lynn and Heller assigned at this outpost. So I should have rank 3 of outpost engineering and rank 3 of outpost management. And I literally have none of those. Like there's just nothing extra that's happening at this outpost versus my other outpost. So I'm really sort of confused what's going on with that. I think it's just bugged or followers just don't work. But when followers get fixed, I think having Sam Co available to automatically boost your ship's cargo capacity will be really good. And the bigger your ship's cargo capacity, the more valuable that becomes. And so if you really wanted to boost it, you could actually go grab that skill yourself. And you can see you get 10% increases, but then the final one you get a 20% increase. So you literally have 50% more cargo capacity. And so the value of that's going to go a lot further the bigger the base value of your ship's cargo is. So like if we look at a ship with 2,000 base cargo, 50% is going to be 1,000 more, right? Versus like something like with 200 base cargo, it's only going to get 100 more. And so the Econo Hull is really going to maximize the value of this payload thing if that's something you're building towards or going for, just to have an extra huge ship storage capacity. And this is like, it was like a 75,000 credit ship, and I might do like a separate little ship tour on it because I just fucking love it. But I finally basically got my next like version of that where I still have a huge cargo hold, but it's a lot better at space battles. This one's actually really good at space battles. Like surprisingly, it's better than Frontier by a bit, and it's better than most ships in its level range. And it can basically handle up to like level 20 ships. So once you start getting into fights with like multiple ships above level 20 is when it really starts to struggle. But it's got really good weapon system where you can literally just constantly hold down the triggers on both and just melt stuff. But I think the next really good ship that you can actually buy, which was the next one I saved up for, is the Shield Breaker. So these other ones I stole. But the Shield Breaker I finally bought with my hard-earned creds. We can see here, it has really close to the same type of cargo hold, but you're basically just getting a bigger reactor and bigger weapons. These are like 3 automatic laser cannons that just go off on stuff, and then you have a little weaker ballistic, and then you get to add missiles where you don't have a third weapon on the Econo Hull, and you get a little bigger shield and better grav drive. So basically this is like the next version of Econo Hull if you want like a big hauler. And I'm sure there's other, and this is the other big difference is Econo Hull is a class A ship, so you can fly it with you don't need any special skills to fly it, like anything in that flight skill. But in order to fly the Shield Breaker, you're going to need to get to the 3rd one, which will give you the access to the B rank ships. And so I basically just got enough credits to buy this guy like a few days ago, and then I got that skill done where I now have, you can see I can do Class B ships. And I'm probably going to do this one next, but I'm sure Class C ships are going to have even bigger, especially if they're like a cargo or hauler focused ship. We're probably going to have some really big holds, and so just keep in mind that upgrading this payload thing is going to go further and further like the bigger your ship's cargo hold. It's also just a beautiful gangster looking ship with these giant laser cannons that just melt stuff. All right, I think that's about it. I hope that made sense. I hope it was useful. I hope you're able to replicate as much of that as you want to make kind of like an automated storage place where you can just have one spot to come drop all your loot and continue on your adventures instead of that getting in the way of your gameplay. So that's all I got for this one. Take care of yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.